Well, toss that rusty old grill into the lake and set the Bark Lounge on fire. You have now tuned into the Dadward Spiral. My name is Aaron Pruner, and I almost lost it. I almost lost my train of thought just then. It's been a while since I've said that sentence.
Sure.
And Eddie's back. Hi, Eddie.
Hello, I'm back.
Before I get into whatever the hell we're going to be talking about, you can find me at Aaron Flux on Twitter, Aaron W. Pruner on Instagram, Aaron W. Pruner on Facebook. We're Dadward Spiral on Twitter, and I have not done anything with it. And on Facebook, it's been pretty dormant. We've been a little distracted over the past few months. But here we are with a new episode. So thanks for tuning in. And Eddie's Kirby.matrix.
Yes, Kirby.matrix.twitter.com. That's pretty much it. My Instagram is non-existent, really not worth your time. I can't recommend it. It's not.
My Instagram, the only service my Instagram has been providing over the past week is Bernie Sanders memes. I've just been collecting the ones that are the best.
It's been pretty good, yeah. It's
my wife has asked me to stop. She's like, "You gotta slow down."
It's just, you know what it is that his posture, the way his legs are, you can definitely do the chair, right? Like you can have him in a chair, but like you can Photoshop out the chair and have him be in whatever. The best one I saw was a UFC fight where someone's doing an armbar. And what's great about that is that the way Bernie has his hands kind of folded over each other, that's actually the proper posture for holding an arm in an armbar. So it was funny to see that one. I made a joke recently saying someone should put Bernie in the WAP video, and sure enough, I got tagged like 3 or 4 times of people who had. That it didn't really work. It was a bit of a style clash. The neutral earth tone jacket and the sort of the vibrant blues and yellows of the WAP video, it didn't really blend too well. But I think the last one I shared was Danny riding his tricycle through the shining Overlook Hotel and coming around the corner to Bernie sitting there in a chair instead of the Shining twins. I'm getting off track here. Before we even continue, you could find our show pretty much everywhere podcasts are available. I would suggest going to Dragon Wagon Radio's website and checking out our merch at dragonwagonradio.com. And I think that's all the business. I don't know, whatever. I'm so into this. Jesus, we're back.
That's why. Exciting. Look, this is why I said Eddie and I need to do an episode just us, because I'm out of practice. Well, and a lot has happened.
That's what I was gonna say. So much has happened. I know we've done an episode. You did a fantastic interview in the previous episode, so you've kind of kicked off the new year. But since you and I talked last, the world has literally changed. We had an election. We had a attempted coup. We had and a new president, and hopefully some green shoots of hope for a lot of different folk. That's certainly things that have happened, and just I was out of town for a little bit. We did a very safe travel out of town, and we're back now and kind of prioritizing for the new year. And it's the holidays, as we talked about in our previous episode together, happened, and it feels like things are just fundamentally different. My son turned 10. That was the other big thing.
Oh, well, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. My oldest son turned 10. That was a trip. That was every birthday, you're like, wow, you're older. You notice, especially at that age, you notice how much they grow in the span of 1 year, but seeing it all in the totality of thinking back on 10 years and how much he's grown and matured. It was a lot. It was a lot. And we had and it was also like a COVID birthday, so it was like what could we do to make that experience where he was not going to see any friends, where he was not going to have a party, where he was not really, like, if we did go somewhere, but we had to be extraordinarily careful about going where we went. That was a challenge. But we made the most of it, and he said it was one of his favorite birthdays ever. So hopefully we did some stuff right, and hopefully he's not going to remember it for the insanity of this time.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that we get to a point where we don't have to wear masks anymore, and in a few years, Lily won't remember this. Like, I don't want this to be a defining part of her childhood. Although, I feel I feel like the mask and quarantining thing just fits her personality. The other day in the car,
Sure.
I'm raising a goth kid. The other day in the car, every time we're in the car, she requests immediately sunglasses because, and I quote, "I hate the sun." It just every time. I hate the sun. I hate the sun. The other day in the car, it was like I heard it low key. Like she was very quiet. I turned the music down and she was like, "I hate the sun. I hate the sun. I hate the sun. I hate the sun." And I'm like, "You're two." And that we're heading to the park. And she demanded that no kids be there because she also hates other kids.
She is so your daughter. She is so your
hates
daughter.
Kids.
No
and
DNA
she
test
hates
needed.
the sun. And I was like, Lily, the other kids are going to have to be at the park. It's a public place. And it's like, I go there with her and she is so standoffish. And I hear her making these like frustrated grunt noises every time a kid gets near her.
Riker does the same shit. Riker and Lily would be buddies because Riker is like an extraordinarily sweet kid, just like Lily is, and has a lot of sweetness and kindness within him. But he can get like fussy and like absolutely own his boundary and own his space, and just sort of like and just own who he is. So I see a lot of parallels there.
Yeah, it's just funny to me because that's how I was growing up, and I'm wondering if it would be different if she had a brother or sister, but I don't think it would. I don't know.
Let me ask you something. Let me ask you something really quick because that made me think of something. Do you, because like you were describing in sort of a comedic way of like, some goth qualities that she has, or like maybe qualities that personality wise remind you of you. Do you think
I never said she reminded me of me?
Okay,
you said that.
You said the goth connection, right? Like when you see like elements like that, like I see certain elements of myself come out in my kids that make me chuckle because they remind me of me. But at the same time, I'm like, oh wait, is this the right approach I want them to take? Like, is this the right perspective I want them to have at this age? Like that's something I struggle with sometimes.
I do too. I don't want to be raising an antisocial kid that hates other people, but like, we're trying to put her in situations where she could be in that type of environment. I guess we just got to wait and see. I mean, she was like this when everything was open, when we were still going to my gym. She didn't want to be near any other kids. Yeah. And this was before she was even a year old. So
right.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm raising what was the Winona Ryder's name from Beetlejuice? It was
shit.
Was it
something like that. Bedelia.
I myself as strange and unusual.
No, that's Creepshow. Creepshow is Bedelia. Damien would know. Our friend Damien would know.
It's not like I have Google in front of me.
Right.
I'm not gonna look. So we were originally planning on recording an episode the first week of January.
Yes.
And I was like, Eddie, there's a thing I want to talk about. There's this thing on Twitter and it's trending, and it's this guy who's going by the name of Bean Dad.
Oh, Bean Dad. That feels like 40 years ago.
It was 3 weeks.
Bean Dad was 3 weeks ago at the time of this recording. That feels like before I was married. Like, Jesus Christ, that feels like forever ago.
Right. And so we were going to do that. And then QAnon and a whole bunch of hate groups stormed the Capitol. And
potential coup. Yeah, just
people died and just insanity. It was just insane. And I was at the park with Lily when it happened. And I stayed there to drink some coffee before I went home, and my wife took my daughter home for lunch. And I just happened to look at my phone. I was like, what's happening? And it just it just kept getting worse. And then you were like, dude, I need to reschedule. And I don't want to get too far into that, but I'm assuming you have military background, and I feel like a lot of that is in your DNA, and that really hit you.
Yeah, it's like, so yeah, it did. But not necessarily for like the sort of obvious reasons, although the more obvious things are there too. So here's my general approach to patriotism and reverence and things like that. So like let's just start with the notion of the flag, right? Like so when you're in the military, you learn all of these like intricate things around tradition and custom with handling a flag, right? You never let a flag touch the ground. If a flag touches the ground, you have to destroy it, and you can't just destroy it any way you want. You can't like cut it up. You can't eat it. It has to be it has to be like ceremonious.
People don't want to eat the flag.
It has to be ceremonially burned. It has to be. It's called retiring a flag, and you do this when a flag has like weathered or damaged. You retire a flag. If it touches the ground, you retire a flag. You're not supposed to fly it at night unless it has an independent light source on it, like a lamp. Like you'll never see a flag flying at dark unless like its lamp went out. Otherwise, there's like a whole ceremony with it. So you could look at that and say, oh, it's because the flag stands for all these great and noble things. My approach to it is the flag stands for these great and noble things and our horrible history as well. It is our, as Baldwin says, the bloody catalog of all of the truths of America. It is, as Ta-Nehisi Coates says, not just our credits, but our debits. It is a reminder not only of the things we've done right, but of like so many things we have yet to correct, so many things we have yet to fix. It is a reminder of everybody who has died in this country for reasons good and ill. And it should be a sobering reminder of, sure, yeah, how far we've come, but how far we have yet to go as a country, as a society, as a culture. And I truly think of that. And to that point, I don't just think of the brave heroes of World War II who died for the flag. I also think about every single slave who's in the ground. I also think like about everybody who lived in injustice and bondage at the behest of the system. I look at it as a solemn reminder, and for that reason, it should that sort of not iconography. It has meaning and value and a certain amount of reverence to it, right? So I feel that way about the Capitol. I feel that way about the Capitol was built by slaves, and like it was, and it is that inherent contradiction that is the embodiment of America. And seeing people, and for the right, I know we don't want to get terribly political here, but like, you don't deface the flag, right? You don't deface,
Eddie,
like, yeah, go ahead.
Let's just fuck around and see what happens, man. Yeah. That's my motto for 2021.
Fair. So, like the thin blue line flag that you see a lot. I fucking hate that thing. I don't fucking hate cop. Like it's because it's not the flag, right? Like you're like, I fully support everyone's like right to free speech. You are free to do that. I am free to hate it. You have a First Amendment right to fly the traitorous Confederate flag. I have a right to point out to you that thing that wasn't even popular again until Gone with the Wind came out, and American soldiers were reminded of the Tennessee battle flag. Like it's like you have a right to do that. I have a right to think that's entirely inappropriate. Seeing the Confederate flag marched inside of the Capitol, seeing everything that happened with just a blatant disregard, again, not just for our credits, but our debits, this just disgusting view of what the idea of citizenship is, and the idea that it means something more for some and less for others. It hit way harder than I anticipated it to. It hit like it was extraordinarily difficult to see. I have not, when George Floyd happened and a lot of the Black Lives Matter protests happened, Rachel and I sat the kids down. We had a long talk. We were clear, and we condensed and sort of, made the news of that digestible for a 9 and 6-year-old mind. But or five at that time. But at the same time, we did not necessarily pull any punches about it. I was not capable of explaining what was happening to my kids. They still don't know it happened. We watched the inauguration. That was a good thing. Just the peaceful transfer of power. Yeah, I know. But it was. I found myself. I would have found myself just overcome with rage and failing at articulating.
It really helps when there's a kid screaming in the background to really talk about rage.
She's had a real one today. She's been in the car a lot today. Hasn't really gotten a lot of outdoor time. It was raining. It was hailing earlier, which was crazy.
Really? Yeah. It's raining here.
So all that is to say, Aaron, that had a very difficult time dealing with that. Still had a hard time dealing with that. We had a death in my family recently as well. So it was 2021 was not off to the best start. You know what I mean? But it's weird because I am filled with like a sense of I dare hope again for a lot of different reasons. It's weird. And again, not to make it political, but it's just like the atmosphere is different. I feel like hell, Trump getting banned from social. There's a whole conversation around that.
Yeah, it's. I was just talking to my wife about this because we were like, there's a new president and it doesn't feel real. It feels like a dream. And I said, maybe that's partly because we didn't have Trump on Twitter ranting about whatever during the inauguration. Having his silence sort of silenced a bunch of Trump bots and, all the QAnon people that seems to have fizzled. And there's a bunch of people who are feeling betrayed by Trump and lied to. And it's this weird, like, suddenly we have a guy who, whether you agree with his politics or not, he is showing a sense of empathy and understanding and transparency.
Yes. I mean, just the White House, the White House daily schedule announcement alone is demonstrative of that, right? So like the last month or so, the schedule announcement of the previous president was literally the president will wake up early and go to bed late at night. He will take many meetings and take many calls, which is just a joke, right? Like that, like if you were doing a parody of if you were doing like a late 80s Andrew McCarthy led like comedy called like Party Prez, like you would look at that in the script and be like, no, come on, that's ridiculous. But like that was the reality of it, right? Like he's the pizza delivery guy and he accidentally got elected president. Like that kind of, like premise. And like it's crazy to like, and then to go to the current administration where it's like 10:15 to 10:25, travel to this place, 10:25 to this. I mean, to see like an actual itinerary. On the one hand, my OCD brain is in love with that.
Same here.
And then two, just to be like, okay, I have a general idea of what's happening in the world. Like I have a general,
that really kicked in for me when they had that ceremony with the tiny flags that were just remembering the people who died from COVID. So I'm going to go on a tangent for a second here.
Please.
I'm going to do a lot of these because we don't have an outline for this episode and I got things to say. Recently, I have watched a 4-part docuseries called Night Stalker, The Hunt for a Serial Killer on Netflix. And I interviewed the director for an article I wrote. And I was 9 years old when the Night Stalker hit the city. And there were a few victims that were about 5 miles away from where I lived. And the fear was real. That was the year 1985 for me. It was a really hot summer. I remember I didn't have an air conditioner in my bedroom and I would sleep with the window open. And, he would come in through the window. So like shutting the window, sleeping just full on sweaty and in fear that this guy was going to break in and do something was very real. But the reason I brought that up was when I talked to the director, the thing that was really interesting to me about the show was it didn't do what Ryan Murphy did when trying to bring to life the Night Stalker in American Horror Story, which was celebritizing this motherfucker. Instead, it reminded us the dude smelled like a goat. He had rotting teeth. And he killed a lot of people. What it also told us was he abducted and molested children, which was not in the media. They kept that out of the media in the 80s. And the show pays tribute to every victim. And I talked to him about that. And he said, you know, a lot of times numbers, a death count, whatever, that can become dehumanizing and numb us to the fact that this was a life lost, that there was a story there, and there were people who loved that person. And just seeing those flags, man, just like recognizing that this isn't just a number. These are people who have died, and there are families and loved ones there. That really hit me, you know, and it was good to see, but also kind of jarring, because I just I like to say that the last 4 years of Trump, we got so used to the daily onslaught of whatever the hell he did. It was like we were laying on a bed of nails. You step on one nail, it hurts, but if you're laying on a bed of them, it's like after a while you don't feel it anymore, you know. Right. And that was my analogy. I want to get to Bean Dad, though. That's what I really want.
Let's talk. Let's bring that old chestnut back.
That old chestnut. I don't even know the guy's name. I'm not going to name his name because I don't want to give him any more
oxygen.
Sure, but there was. I believe he's a comedian. I believe he's a podcast host. He probably has something to do with Barstool Sports or something along those lines.
An appointed. Oh shit.
What was that?
No, that was something like, basically I cleared a push notification, and then it actually Jesus Christ, it did again. It brought up a video. There we go. Okay. I was trying not to do that. Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah. So he went on Twitter to tell a funny story about how his 9-year-old daughter was hungry and wanted to open a can of beans, and he was doing a jigsaw puzzle and couldn't be bothered to get up and fucking show her how to use a can opener. And instead, for hours, she was trying to figure it out. And I have two thoughts here. First off, you are setting your daughter up for a bad relationship with food. Yep. And secondly, my daughter is 2 and knows what a can opener is and how to use it. How the hell are you bragging about being a phenomenal dad that you've gotten this far with your 9-year-old daughter and have never taught her how to open a can, or at least brought her those teachable moments in the kitchen with food so that she does not have any sort of negative connotations with it once, you know, she hits her teenage years, or even later, or even right now? Really pissed me off. And I'm like, that could be a good thing to talk about.
Yeah, it is. And you know, I saw what was interesting to see a gamut of reactions to it, because I don't think it's entirely black and white. Because it's like, on the one hand, yes, a 9-year-old should probably know how to use a can opener, but is that really the 9-year-old's fault? Like, no, it's not at all. It's your fault for having never taught this basic skill to. Now, here's the thing. My kids have used can openers in the past. If I had my 6-year-old try to open a can opener now, he'd probably struggle with it. And that's fine. I wouldn't fucking ridicule him to his face about it. I would. And here's the part that doesn't go talked about in this whole situation. He decided to film it, and then decided to make it. Post it. Well, no, I mean, I thought there was didn't he take a photo of it or something like that?
I don't know. I didn't dive too deep into it because I've been trying to exercise this new rule in my life to not let social media infuriate me to the point of diving down a rabbit hole and getting too invested in bullshit.
Yeah. And I guess that's the thing, is that regardless of whether he filmed it, recorded it, whatever he did, he posted about it, which the point is the same. It became this performative thing, right?
His daughter became a punchline in his comedy routine.
Yeah. And now listen, you and I both will post about our kids. I try to be mindful of posting about them and moments that are flattering to them and indicative of childhood, because at the end of the day, they don't have a say in what I post or not post. In the early days with Grayson, I posted everything, which I would regret now. I've actually gone back and scrubbed a few posts from Facebook and some other places, because he has a right to digital privacy, even as a child. And so, but the other day, I posted like a little transcription of an actual conversation that we had about like our D&D game, and it was a cute, fun thing, nothing to be embarrassed about. But like I'll probably take down most of that stuff a couple of years after I posted anyway. Like the Twitter 2 year scrubber, like there's a little algorithm that'll delete just everything that's over 2 years old. And
wow, I didn't know that. That would be helpful for me.
Yeah, it'd be.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw something a few months ago. I got attacked by anti-Semitic Twitter because I made a comment about how white people like it when white people have guns.
Yes,
I think we talked about that.
We did,
but the reason I mentioned that was that they brought screenshots of old tweets of mine into the fold.
Yeah, without saying her name or without saying the place that reported on it. She's not. I can't claim her as a friend, but she's someone I know in our space who we follow each other on Twitter. Yeah, and so
I posted about it, and I had to mute that conversation.
Yeah, it's kind of insane how and to be fair, the original posters of that situation were known bad actors associated with bullshit things like Comicsgate and all this other stuff. And so it's like on the one hand, you can't take the source too seriously. On the other hand, abuse is abuse, and visibility is visibility, and amplification is amplification, which is so going back to Bean Dad, in his best.
Such a stupid name. Like you're gonna use that as like your claim to fame. Sorry,
that's what I'm saying is that no, it's okay. It's just I don't know what he thought he was doing. I don't know what his objective was. When I post conversation bits with my kids, it's usually because I'm proud of something they've done. It's usually because they have a unique view on life that's funny or maybe sweet, or maybe I would never post anything where it's not them in a vulnerable state, right? I don't you and I have a podcast about dadding, and at the end of the day, we paint ourselves as as well-intentioned, sometimes bumbling, sometimes learning. We own our mistakes, but overall positive representation of ourselves. But one thing I think we've done a good job of is not fucking brag about I'm a good dad, and let me tell you why. It's our perspective is we don't know, we're not experts, but this is what we've tried, and hopefully it works. And we'll fast forward 20 years.
We're at least trying to exercise accountability when we fuck up.
Yeah, exactly. That's the other thing. I think we talk about our fuck ups as much, if not more, than our successes, or at least how we've learned. This guy just out the gate was let me tell you about what kind of dad I am, and thought it was gonna land. He thought it was gonna be this thing that people go, yeah, fuck those snowflakes or whatever. I don't know.
These 9-year-old snowflakes. Yeah, who don't know how to use kitchen tools.
It was just so it was so tone deaf, and it was it said more with the things that I didn't even think he realized he was saying. I don't know. That's just my read on it. I don't know.
Yeah. It's I'm gonna change the subject because you're talking about fuck ups, and as a parent, we fuck up a lot, and recently my wife and I have learned that my daughter has night terrors. And doing research on night terrors, they affect something like 6% of kids. And the way we learned about this was, so roughly 4 to 5 hours after putting her to bed, she'll start screaming in this mumbly gibberish. And she will look at the monitor, and she's not really moving or anything, but she won't stop. And she'll scream off and on for 2 hours. And my wife, the first time, she was like, should I go in? I'm all, I don't know. She doesn't look like she's awake, but it kept happening. We were concerned. Kelly went in and was trying to console Lily, and it made it worse. This was New Year's Eve, by the way. Which was even more so a problem because people on my block outside my building were setting off fireworks right outside my daughter's window. But I have never in my life had any experience with night terrors. And turns out that a kid can scream, have their eyes open, thrash around, and still won't be awake. And my daughter was like Linda Blair in The Exorcist. She was making these ungodly noises. For about an hour, Kelly was holding her, and she was flailing around, trying to throw her body out of her arms, crying hysterically. And we didn't know what the problem was, and it ended up being a thing where the fireworks were going off, and Kelly and Lily ended up sleeping on the floor in her room, which was a great way to end New Year's. But the reason I'm sharing this is I did some research on this, and apparently you don't wake a kid who has night terrors.
Right.
You don't touch a kid that has night terrors, because they will view you as a threat.
Yeah.
They won't see you. They'll see you as like a shadow person or like some sort of monster enemy. And I was watching videos online of this, and I saw other kids doing exactly what Lily was doing. And it was this huge wake up call as to, that gut instinct of your kid is screaming, go and help her and comfort her isn't always the
Nope.
solution.
Not at all. Yeah. That's crazy. I mean, man, that's tough. How did you didn't Lily remember it the next day? Like, what?
No.
Did you talk about it? No. Oh man.
All she remembered was finally being awake and hearing the fireworks and sleeping on the floor with mommy. But since then, she has started having nightmares. And recently she's been having this recurring nightmare. Kelly took her to the beach the other day when it was 90 degrees and not 45 degrees outside.
Right.
And they brought a little tent that Lily got to sit in, but apparently it was really windy, and the wind blew the tent away. That Kelly went running for the tent, and Lily got scared that mommy was running away and wouldn't come back. And that has been an ongoing nightmare. And that's something that I'm still trying to wrap my head around, how you comfort a kid and explain to them that we're not going anywhere and it was just a dream, especially when they're like 2 years and 4 months. That's been something that has been happening every night this past week. So if I look tired, that's why.
Yeah, listen, I mean, that's one of those things where when you're confronted with a new situation that you have not, because like you read the books and you talk to other parents, you learn as much as you can, you create a podcast, apparently, like you do all the things, that you have power to.
Hey, Brandon at Whole Foods, our only listener.
Hey, Brandon,
how's it going?
right? I actually shout out to my buddy Jackson Lansing, who caught up with it over break. He's not a parent. Him and his wife, they know they eventually want to be parents. They're not in any hurry.
Welcome to the experts.
Yeah, welcome.
We're here to guide you.
Gigantic fucking clown air quotes.
I would like to say right now, before we continue, Eddie is reclining on the floor in his daughter's room wearing a shirt that looks like it has like a bloody shark on it.
No, it's a Comic-Con shirt. It's a gorilla.
And I'm in bed with a Crypt Keeper shirt on. Yeah. So we're totally the guys you want to listen to.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron's face is flat like a Victorian painting because he's so like pressed up against his headboard. I'm leaning to one side because my neck is just destroyed, and for some reason, this position I'm in is like the only thing bringing me an ounce of comfort. I had to like do adult stuff today, and I was just like doing it with, like a comically locked up neck to where like it's like, hey, look over there, and I'd have to like rotate my entire torso.
Oh yeah, you
got
a pinched nerve.
I got a pinched nerve. I have some upper back stuff from my fighting days that I still deal with, and they fly.
I have some lower back stuff from my Jewishness.
For your Jewish day, I thought you were about to say your Jewish days. I'm like, what's the shit?
Recently I've been I have arthritis in my hips.
Yeah.
And because I'm a 44-year-old man, and apparently my doctor was like, well, that's normal for your age, and I don't believe him. It's raining, and it's really reminding me that I may look young, but I am a young looking 44-year-old in an 88-year-old's body. But yeah, the nightmare stuff, I was a guest on just randomly, I was a guest on a podcast called Alter Weekly.
Yeah.
And they cover horror stuff, and they found my Washington Post article about how parenting ruined horror films for me. And we talked a bit about nightmares and how I can't really watch horror movies after a certain time of day because I'm already going to sleep with a lot of anxiety and a lot of worries on my mind about everything from, if there's an earthquake, how am I going to get my wife and my child to safety?
Right.
To a bunch of just in general, she's having nightmares and screaming in the middle of the night, and pandemic, and all this, my mother and all this stuff. I don't need to add on whatever horror movie bullshit's going to happen on screen to add to that, which I just watched a docuseries about the Night Stalker, which added some color to my dreams, but it was a really interesting talk, and I represented the show. But I wanted to just ask you, have you had to deal with kids having nightmares, and how do you deal with that?
What a loaded question. No, but my mother and I both suffer from different forms of dissociative sleep disorder, which is...
Oh, wow. Kelly was telling me that she had sleep paralysis growing up, and I saw a documentary about that. That shit's scary.
It's scary. I don't have paralysis. My mother was a notorious sleepwalker. My mom would, I mean, she'd go through the house, make meals. She once stood at the archway of the doorway of my bedroom when I was about 13, 14. And she was pressing buttons like it was an elevator. And she rehearsed. She basically went through an entire presentation she was giving to Northrop Grumman like the following week. And she killed it. Like she did great. I too found out in my early adulthood that I have also some dissociative sleep stuff. And I'm less comfortable going into the details of that, but like, it's something I have dealt with myself. I also have, the little thread you pulled on, man, you're going to pull the whole sweater undone.
I'm not pressing you at all.
No, I know, but it's all this stuff is like super intertwined.
And look, before you continue, the reason I'm asking is because what I've learned about night terrors is that there's a genetic component there.
That's why I'm bringing this stuff up. Yeah.
My wife, my brother-in-law, I guess sleepwalked when he was a kid.
Yeah.
My wife talks in her sleep.
Yep.
I have insomnia.
Yep.
And certain issues where I can't stay asleep because of my chemical imbalance with my own issues. And it's like, well, shit, I'm fucking up my daughter just by existing. but
totally
it's I didn't mean to pull a thread, but it's like, I'm just curious how you communicate with your kid. Hey, that's a dream. There's nothing to be afraid of, and I guess my daughter isn't even of the age to know the difference between dreams and reality.
Right.
Please continue.
No, it's okay. I'll circle back a little bit. Like my son had a bad dream last night. He had a dream that like he was hanging out with like a YouTuber, like a fictitious YouTuber, one that does not exist. But like they were doing like an exploration and they found some zombies, and like he's like, it was a little scary. And so like he's now at an age where he can tell when he's had a dream and it's bad and it's over, or when he's had a funny dream. He had a really bad one about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it kind of like it ruined his whole day. And so we had to like have a talk about it. It brought on some larger conversations, which were good. Riker doesn't really, if he has had bad dreams, he's never talked about them. I think he had a bad dream once, but like much, much less frequent. I also, as a kid, well, even now, I suffer from something called sensory processing disorder, which is, it is what it is. It is what it sounds like. I have a hard time processing certain stimuli. And I'm pretty sure without saying who, pretty sure one of my sons has it. There's definitely noise sensitivity with it, but for me, it was also when I was young.
During sleep, or is that just?
Well, it's all the time. Well, no, it's not all the time. It's randomly, and it's for me. It would happen as I would have these episodes when I was younger where it would happen right before I would get ready for bed, and the sensation for me was my depth perception would go fucking batshit. I would like all of a sudden I'd be laying in bed, and then it would feel like the back of the room suddenly stretched out like 50 yards, or sometimes even at the same time, it felt like all depth had been lost and everything was just a flat painting, but like 20 feet away. Sounds would become like the faintest sounds would become incredibly loud. Textures would be really wonky. Like I
How
would
did you
not.
get how did you get diagnosed in figuring out what the issue was?
I aged 35 years and took myself to a doctor.
Oh, okay.
Because when I was 5, when this stuff was really happening a lot, I did not have the capability to explain it to my parents. And this is where I think it's relevant to our conversation. I could not explain to people what was happening. It happened one time at my grandma's house. My poor grandma. She would like, she's like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, and I would just try to like describe, and she was not getting what I was describing. And then I could get out like phrases like "everything's loud" or "everything's far away." I would break it down in things like that. But she had fucking no clue what to do for me. She had and no, that's not on her. Like I was just hysterically upset and just not able to calm down. And like, say it happened in front of my dad and my mom on separate instances. And they were just like, maybe he has a headache, like give him some Tylenol, give him some whatever, like just, the limited arsenal they had. So for me, and this is where it gets interesting because, I have ADHD. There's some other neurodivergent stuff happening there. And my son, at least one of my sons grapples with that too. And sometimes it's like, so what that taught for me was what I needed at that age. With reflection, looking back, what I needed, and this is not laying blame on anybody, but what I needed was someone in the moment to just assure me that it's going to be okay. It's not going to be forever. Just take a breath, catch your breathing. The mind, the mental and the physical health stuff is linked. So it's like, let's get our body to do a thing. And then at that point, your mind will maybe be in a better position to listen or talk or communicate. But don't let's take it down now. If you need to be hugged or held, or if you need to not be that's completely fine. Whatever you need. If you want to take a bath, don't bombard them with options, but just give them time to breathe, give them time to catch themselves. And then let's figure out what you need. And when you're ready, we can talk about this stuff. Sleep terrors and any kind of sleep disorder is so interesting because it's two separate experiences. There's the thing that's happening, and then there's the aftermath, right? And then it's like, how do you, especially if they can't remember it, what can you do? What can you do if they don't remember it? What can you do if they don't, if it's just a thing that's going on? I don't even pretend to have all the answers. I would definitely, there's a lot of great online resources for that stuff. But for me, you can't solve the bigger stuff, but what you can do is in the moment, make them know that they're going to be okay. And that they're, that whatever they're feeling and experiencing does not make them weird, does not make them, there's nothing wrong with them. And I've had conversations with one of my sons about the ADHD. I take medication, he takes medication. I put his medication in his, and I'm open about it. I'm like, this is what this is for. And, this is why we're doing this. And it's not every day that we do this, but it's, there's reasons for this stuff. And I have to do it too, but it's not, don't beat yourself up. The ADHD thing, people don't realize there's an immense amount of self-loathing and guilt and shame that comes with being that way. And for me, it definitely was. The two worst things that happened in my childhood were A, not getting diagnosed for ADHD, and B, getting an IQ test when I was 6. Because then it was you're smarter than all of us. You should be breezing through this stuff. It's clearly because you're not trying hard enough. You're not applying yourself, that's not demonizing my parents. That was a very early 80s thing. That was a very specific type of mindset around the bullshit IQ test that were given at the time. So, that's that, because you get labeled as gifted, and I was put in gifted programs, and I'd always do well in my gifted programs, but I'd always do C's in my regular classwork because it was just,
I was the same.
Yeah.
But I've never been diagnosed with ADHD, but I was great in school, but I tested horribly. I was valedictorian and I had the highest grade in my class, and I remember the exact score. I got an 832 on my SATs.
Opposite with me. I was a 1240 on my SATs and a 2.7 GPA.
Yeah, I had a 4.5 GPA. I had the highest grade in my
Lottie
school.
fucking
Like,
died.
anyways,
I
you mentioned YouTube, and I want to talk about something.
Yeah.
A YouTube personality that my daughter is obsessed with currently, who has a troublesome past.
Hmm.
And I like to refer to him as a low rent Pee Wee Herman. I am referring to a guy who goes by the name of Blippi.
Blippi!
Blippi. Lily came across his videos we were at Whole Foods or something. She was holding daddy's phone. And the next thing I know, I hear this annoying voice, and she's watching this guy with the high voice, wearing glasses and a colorful hat, talking about fish. And I'm like, well, at least she's learning about nature. She is obsessed. And I'm like, why do I know about this guy? He looks familiar. There's something off about him. And then I remembered 2 years ago, a news story came out about his past. The man, his name is Stephen John.
Yep.
And
yep.
He, before he was Blippi, he was a gross out comedian on YouTube who went by the name of Steezy Grossman. And he did videos with names like Turd Boy and Underwear Man. And I guess there's a video of him doing the Harlem Shake and pooping on a friend of his.
Yep.
And I was like, oh yeah, that guy. And now he's like a multimillionaire from this Blippi persona. And my daughter is obsessed, and my wife and I want to punch this dude in the face. So we were having this conversation today because, you know, on one side of things, it's watching these, the production quality is so bad, and the character development, it looks like he has no soul behind his eyes. And it almost feels like it's just a poor man's Pee Wee Herman. Yeah. But then there's his past. But then flip side is my daughter learned about carrots today. Like, she learned that carrots grow in the ground and has been asking me about carrots all day because of an episode of Blippi's show that we watched. Yeah. And now she wants to meet Blippi at the playground. It's like,
right.
I'm trying so hard to reconcile the fact that this guy seems like an idiot, but also my daughter loves him.
Yeah, like man, it's so tough. There is no, I'm gonna say what we do. I don't claim that it's the right approach. It may be bad. It may be, I don't know. It's all I know is that it's no one has an answer for this because we are unfortunately the beta testing group for things like YouTube and media bombardment.
Yeah.
Like we talked about this with Drew, right? Like we talked with Drew McWeeny a few weeks back. Like it's okay. There's a couple concepts kind of orbiting at once. One is parasocial contact theory, which is this notion of people creating a one-sided bond or friendship with somebody else, usually in media. So traditionally that meant what's a good example? Watching a movie and going, wow, I think I'd really enjoy hanging out with Arnold Schwarzenegger in real life. I think we'd be friends. Or like, wow, Arnold Schwarzenegger's movies mean so much to me. And like, he means so much to me, but I have never met him. It's one-sided. That's what we call parasocial.
It's that Growing Pains episode where Ben Seaver was really into a musician who was played by Brad Pitt. And then he got to meet him in person and realized Brad Pitt is a fucking dick, and had to have that conversation with Alan Thicke about, you could still be a fan of his music and, separating the art from the artist.
Well, and that leads into the second concept, which is death of the author, right? Like it's like death of authorial intent, death of the author as a person's presence. A lot of people are having the same thing with J.K. Rowling right now. Of like, how do you reconcile that? For me, we already own the Harry Potter books. We already own,
my
or
wife
at least
is
have
a super
access
fan.
to it.
Trust me.
Yeah, you get it. No, I'm Terry Matalas. He and I had, I don't want to like it was a private conversation, but like he and I chatted about this very notion about like, you know, hey, these books mean a lot to.
We need to get him on the show, by the way.
Yeah, we do. I know. But like, and so we had the conversation of like, well, what does it mean now? Like, what does that believe? And, you know, I would recommend when it comes to things like that, Lindsay Ellis has a great video that she did specifically about rolling, but that could be applied to that could absolutely be applied to Blippi. On the other hand, you also have this whole thing about YouTube, you know, the algorithm. My sons both have iPod touches, you know, the iPhones without the phone, because they're cheap, but also I can look at their history and see what they've been watching. And I do. And my son Grayson really likes crafting YouTubes. He really likes a lot of like Dr. or Mr. Gear, which is like a you know, or like life hacks. He likes a lot of that stuff. He's building he is, as we speak, no bullshit, building a crossbow out of paper. That's like got some basic mechanics. It shoots like a little rolled up piece of paper. It's not damaging. It's fine. Like he's currently doing that. He also watches a lot of like Preston, who's like a grown man, but like targets that Disney Junior demographic with like Minecraft videos. He's really into that. Dude Perfect, big into Dude Perfect and pranks and stunts. And what I'm finding to be interesting is that sense of humor is informing their creativity. I just started playing D&D with them. I ran them through a dungeon where their characters had to go fight a Furbolg and some goblins and whatnot. And instead of killing them, they played pranks on them. They basically set up Home Alone inside the Lost Mines of Phandelver. They like put soap in their food and like they like did this extensive like skill check to like make them trick each other into thinking that they're beating each other up. Like it was this whole, and so like that informs their sense of humor and their sense of creativity. And it's like, is that good? Is that bad? I don't know. I don't know where the line is. I don't know. Like my big thing is I can't stop them. I mean, I can. I don't know if I should stop them from consuming that stuff. I guess my counterweight to it is make sure they consume other stuff too. Make sure they have other media influences, I guess. Blippi in particular, my daughter fucking loves Blippi.
Okay, good. Okay, so it's not just
oh god, no.
What is it about him that appeals? Is it the simplistic the dumbing down of just this is a man boy and now we're dancing like a monkey and now we're gonna go on a slide? Like, do you think they feel like they're living vicariously through him? And I think so then in that way they're learning about the world?
Analyzing it, and like this is the type of stuff I do in my day job. Is like trying to reverse engineer why things work. And what I would say to this is bright, chunky primary colors. Like look at his outfit: blue, yellow, red, big, chunky primary colors. Each little segment is super short. Like in one show, he'll do a bunch of different things. Big, exaggerated physical movements, big facial expressions. Kids especially are into very large facial expressions. Like that's how they register and perceive emotion, especially at like our kids' age. Because like Millie and Lily are relatively close in age. And a fun little music bit and toys. The Ryan thing especially. Like my son Riker was big into Ryan. Ryan's Mystery. I don't know what that is. Oh, give it time. Ryan is I think he's 8 now, but his dad started his YouTube channel when he was like 6. Ryan's Toy Review. And it was basically unboxing where this little sweet 4-year-old kid, Ryan, would open up a new toy and he'd have a big reaction to it. And it is, I mean, there's like PewDiePie and then there's Ryan. Like it's like he is the most popular kids YouTube streamer. He has Nickelodeon shows now, his own toy line at Target. If you go to Target and you look in the toy line, you'll see Ryan's face. There's like, I mean, it's this tens of $1 million industry right now. each video gets like 20 million views. It's ridiculous. And like at my kid's school, Riker had like a little Ryan like stuffed like creature like on his backpack, and like immediately the kids and him just started talking about Ryan. Like, so it's not just our kids, man. It's this is childhood now. Saturday morning cartoons, it's this instead. This is the media that they're confronted with.
Well, we're only really letting Lily have like 2 hours, 1 or 2 hours of TV a week.
Yeah, we limit it too.
Mind you, I sometimes we slip a bit, but she no longer wants Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, and I feel a little bit sad about that. And she went from that to Blippi, and I'm like, okay, come on, there's got to be other options, better options. But again, if she's learning stuff, if there's an educational component, I can't be super mad. You know, I guess this could lead us to a bigger conversation about the art versus the artist, kind of like the Cosby Show and its merit as a TV show versus the guy who created it, you know, or Michael Jackson's music versus the guy who created it and that legacy.
That's a hard one. My wife is a dancer. She got into dancing because of Michael. She's done numerous.
I was in the Michael Jackson fan club when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Like I had the glove, I had the socks and the outfit and the hat. And I watched that behind the scenes Thriller music video hundreds of times to try to get all the dance move down. So I get it. I get it. I'm out of things to talk about.
Same, man.
Although I will say this, during the pandemic, I read a book, and I don't read much. I say that as I'm looking at the stack of books here that I still need to finish reading. I got Barack Obama's book. I have Jesus and Miro, and the Bruce Lee book I still haven't finished. But Matthew McConaughey, I don't know if you read much. I know that you don't have like a schedule that permits much free time.
I'm reading 2 books right now, like when I can, and not very much progression at a time. I'm currently reading The Water Dancer by Ta-Nehisi Coates, and I'm also reading Samurai Assassins by Rhombus Hillsborough. It's basically about samurais. It's nonfiction. It's the samurais in the Meiji Restoration period. It's a particular piece of history I'm really into. So
that's interesting. I just finished the Matthew McConaughey's memoir, Green Lights, and
how was it?
It was a super easy read and really fascinating to hear about his life and how he became an actor by accident, and how his relationship with his father impacted the way he interacted with the world and how he ended up being a father himself. And if you get a moment, like I highly recommend you and all 5 of our listeners read it. It was a great book. It was a fun book and an insightful one. And it made me feel a sense of like, I don't know, clarity, a little bit of hope. And then, and then the past month has, like, my mom just got the vaccine. It's like,
that's awesome, man.
It's weird. I mean, the first dose, it's weird how a month ago where we were at and then where we are now today as we're talking. So I don't know. I got my stimulus and a debit card sent to me yesterday, which was weird. I almost threw the debit card away because I thought it was junk mail. That would have been bad. But still plugging along, trying to do our thing. And we are gonna shoot for having more guests, but I wanted to check in with you and sort of recalibrate.
Square away for a new year, right? Like figure out, like, I think it's important to reset like this because we had a decent break off, and you had the one episode before, and it's, I don't know, to our earlier point, 2021 feels different, and I think like I spent a lot of time over the holiday thinking about how I dad, and the things that I like about how I dad and the things that I don't like about how I dad, and things that I have goals. Like I'm trying to do more like practical play with my kids. The D&D thing is a part of it, right? Because it's like, I want to teach them to use their imaginations more. I want them to see me in a way that shows me at play, like I want to show them, that like shows me they deserve to see me in situations that are more than just like, did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this? Like they need to have a relationship with me that is more than that, or at least like better proportioned. So I was pretty critical of myself this last year. I think this podcast was part of that. I think like, you know, like talking about this stuff, we're kind of forced to reflect and own, you know, our victories and our shortcomings. And for me, at least, it's given me a lot to think about for this year. So we'll see. I mean, you know, fast forward to our December 2021 issue, and provided everything's not on fire, like I think it'll be a nice opportunity to see how we did.
If the show is even still around,
that who the hell knows? Like who knows? Yeah. Or maybe it becomes this big thing and this is like our salad days. Who knows?
Look, like I said, man, I'm writing a thing. Who knows what happens?
Yeah.
But hopefully one day we'll get Dax Shepard on, the guy that inspired the whole thing. Who knows?
Matter of time.
Eddie,
sir,
I want to thank you for taking the time in your daughter's bedroom to speak with me, to check in on episode number 9.
Jeez.
This is episode number 9 of the Dadward Spiral. Once again, you could find us at Dadward Spiral on Twitter. I got a new phone. I got an iPhone. I don't know how to use this fucking thing. I haven't had an iPhone in 12 years. And so like I just realized I don't have the Dadward Spiral account on my Twitter app on the iPhone, which I probably should fix. But you know, if you want to follow me there, I don't do much with it. I'm trying. I do engage more on the Facebook page at Dadward Spiral as well. And dadwardspiral.com. I created a Substack and haven't done shit with it since Thanksgiving because it just felt like there was more important things going on in the world and I needed to have less screen time. But I feel like soon there's going to be more stuff posted there. I'm Aaron W. Pruner on Facebook and Instagram, Aaron Flux on Twitter, and Dragon Wagon Radio is the ones who give us a home. So please follow them on Twitter. And like I said earlier, we're available pretty much everywhere podcasts are, but go to the Dragon Wagon Radio's website. Got some cool merchandise, and there's other great shows on their platform, including the Koi Cast with my friend Koi Jandro.
Koi Jandro, my boy Koi.
Yeah, this has been episode number 8. Eddie, do you have any final words of wisdom to share with me? Just me.
Just you.
No one's listening. Just me.
Hey, go easy on yourself. You got another day tomorrow. Just try better. You know, if you ever feel like today went bad. I had a day the other day that was like, well, that was a bad parent day. And I just had to remind myself, like, I get to try and make it better tomorrow. That's all you can do.
I feel like you're my surrogate dad spirit. And I'm not going to say spirit animal because that's racist, but
sure,
you're like my mascot. You're like my Tyler Durden, but you're real.
But I'm like, every time you say that, I just feel like I kind of throw up my shoulders and go, okay. Like if that's,
just
sure. Yeah, okay.
Just take it. All right, Eddie.
All right, buddy.
Until next time, be excellent to each other.
Hey everyone, Jake Lloyd here.
Along with Paul Bianchi.
And Alexandra Hoy.
Hey, we all host different shows on Dragon Wagon Radio.
That's true, but we're not here to talk about any of those.
Not at all. We are here to talk about Dungeons and Dragon Wagon,
in which us podcasters from Dragon Wagon Radio venture into a mythical land for a D&D-inspired role-playing game.
Alexandra and I are joined by Matt Hinksman and a very special guest of quest for each chapter of an epic saga in which we must take on the roles of half-orcs, dark elves, and more as we fight our way through a fantastical land of peril, drama, and often hilarity.
All of which is controlled by me, the Dungeon Master, and the players' chance rolls of the die.
And our show is for everyone. Even if you don't play role-playing games, you'll love D&DW.
That's right. Our game sessions are highly edited, easy to follow, sound designed from top to bottom, and completely immersive.
Yeah, our episodes sound more like a well-produced radio drama than an RPG show.
So what are you waiting for? Join the adventure on Dungeons and Dragon Wagon at dndwpod.com or wherever you find great podcasts.
It's Dragon Wagon.